You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. And we're joined by Dr. Thomas Anaba. Dr. Professor Gachi has taken leave of us. Dr. Arthur Kennedy too needed to, take a break because he has a flight to catch. Well, now let's talk about matters of corruption and also President Mahama issuing some directives. And the directives are specific to foreign affairs lands. President Mahama has directed the reversal of all allocations and sale of land belonging to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs by the previous government. He says there should be an immediate reversal of such sales. The directive ensures that the ministry's lands at airport residential area claimed by 7 organizations and individuals will now be cancelled and preserved for the people of Ghana, according to Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. He also says, under my watch as Foreign Affairs Minister, no land or property of the ministry located either home or abroad will be sold. So, Kofi, how do you process that?
I think we are making a mess of the management of state assets, and we're actually breaking the law in the process. We have evolved all kinds of conventions which are not rooted in law. And essentially, these conventions have been designed to facilitate looting by various governments and their cronies. That is why you see people allocate lands, state lands, and all those other things, including cars. Okay? Now, let me disclose this. So I am working on a case which hopefully I'll bring in. I invite anybody. Nowadays we are slow, so the younger men can take it up. See, for instance, when it comes to state vehicles, the chief of staff will write a letter and grant more or less, what they call waiver or something. There's a name they call it, for the car to be sold to somebody at, peppercorn rates. That is not lawful. The chief of staff does not have any authority to take state assets and instruct that it should be given to Samson at the peppercorn rate. The same for lands. And if you go through...
The lands are vested in the president.
The lands are vested... Lands. I'm talking about disposal.
Right.
The lands are vested in the president. And if you go from the Constitution Act 257 vesting, and if you go to Public Procurement 663, how it is, disposed of, etc., it shall be done according to the Public Procurement Act. In fact, ultimately leads to an auction. It is not lawful for anybody, including the president, in whom our assets have been vested, to write and say, give the land to this person. All right? If you say you're going to give it to Prof here or this person there, it's state land. Why should it be given to this particular person? The state should get the best benefit, the highest, level of, revenue from it. Why don't you put it out there? And if he wins, that's fine. What I'm saying simply is this. Our politicians, outside law, have evolved systems which allow them to loot us. And by the way, it is also in Article 296 that if you are not a judge and you are having or you are given this power, you will publish a process, a system by which you exercise that power. In other words,
the exercise of discretion.
Exercise of discretion. These things that have been going on both parties is a loot of state resources. And we have the experience that it goes to their friends and cronies. So yes, it's a good thing that President Mahama says, stop it. But we shouldn't get to this point. And I hope President Mahama will be the last person who has to deal with it, because you know what he can do in 4 years? He can have these rules published under Article 296. That nobody, not even he, the president, because he's holding it in trust, shall allocate, give, grant, waive, that any state resource, car, land, building, should be given to any other person except by these processes. And Act 663 is there. In short, if there's a determination that this asset is no longer useful, or there's a reason why it must be disposed of, there's a process, and it must necessarily go to auction. Right? When Franklin discussed the stewardship model in the forum, okay, these are some of the things that go into it. there's no time to talk about it, but people must go into government knowing that you are a steward. A steward doesn't go into government trying to loot things as if he has just won a war. So I commend President Mahama. He just stopped one thing, but he can go ahead and stop more things by making sure that nobody, not the chief of staff or anybody anywhere, may allocate state property to any private person under any circumstance except by the process of law as should be promulgated under Article 296, so that everybody knows that this is how it is done. Too much of it has happened, okay, and we have ended up passing on the foreign affairs laws that we are talking about. Look at it. I mean, we could get millions from them, and we just end up with peppercorn rates, and they are bushes anyway. So it should stop. All of it should stop, not just this one.
The peppercorn rate you are talking about, they are also in the law and in the jurisprudence of land transactions. So if you check the oral oral documentation, when they mentioned the former NIB boss, his acquisition, you will find that every documentation shows that the land was properly acquired.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
The only problem they raise will be that he acquired it for, say, 160,000 Ghana cedis
instead of,
when that same land, the going price in the market will be, say, 700,000 US dollars.
Yes.
They suggested to us. But the person would have fulfilled all the legal process.
That's my point. My point is they have evolved conventions outside the law by which they allocate state properties to themselves and their cronies, which is why I'm saying, you know, Article 296. We know public procurement. The laws are there. And I'm saying it is not lawful because this person who got the land, he may not have stolen it. It's the same case with Honorable Afenyo-Markin. He says he leases his land. But the point is, how is it that somebody sits somewhere, he gets into power today, and then tomorrow he allocates state lands to his friends? It's not right, and the law does not allow that. So I'm urging the president that because 296 is there, that one, nobody, even he, the president who is holding it in trust, cannot allocate it to you, Samson. So if for any reason a determination is made, these are the processes by which it will be made. And if there is going to be a disposal of the asset, these are the processes. It's all in the law. And make that law hard and fast.
In this case, you can predict, Kofi Bento, as a lawyer, that these 7 institutions and individuals who got these lands, the paper trail will show that they may have gotten it clean.
Yes.
And you are going to take it back because you felt the price at which it was sold was too cheap, and perhaps that this is a new government and you don't subscribe to the policy that led to the selling of these lands. That's going to be a battle in court.
It will be a battle that I will win. You and I know about an unconscionable contract. We know about all kinds of rules, ethics, conventions, and systems where you can prove that this was not properly acquired. There are all kinds, we can discuss all of those things, but basically simply based on an unconscionable contract. If so, he has a defense that I didn't steal the land. But the state can go in and say, no, somebody did something wrong for you to get this. Even if we have to compensate you, we may have to compensate you. But taking the land back is entirely lawful and proper. And it is not enough to take this land
back. The one selling the land to me said it is available not only to me, but to other people at 160,000 Ghana cedis. Then a change of government comes in. And then you say, oh, this land is prime land. It could fetch us as much as 700,000 US dollars. Because of that, what should the court say?
And
what did me, the buyer, what did I do wrong?
You are a bona fide purchaser, okay? And that is fine, which is why I'm saying you may be entitled to compensation. But the person who is now in charge of that property, who can prove that it was given to you improperly, at the least as an unconscionable bargain, because you can't buy a Mercedes-Benz for 10 cedis. You ought to know. So I'm saying the law of it is there, okay? But this is what we must avoid. A situation where people claim to have gotten state property fair and square at peppercorn rates and therefore they own it. No, it must stop. And I'm saying the law exists. So what the president can do is not to stop this one, But to go forward and make clear to everybody that he is the president who holds the assets of this country in trust according to 257, cannot give it to his friends and whatever it is like they've done in the past, because it is wrong.
Some of the lands,
we know what has
including the Parks and Garden lands that we heard about, some of them were sold, actually not in this, in the NPP government, but the previous government, NDC government. And they sold it and they gave the reason that the Parks and Gardens,
they needed tools.
They didn't have anything. Yes. You go to their offices and you see how they look like.
Yes.
So we are going to sell, make money, and use the money to put up a good edifice for you, get you cars, get you equipment. What's wrong with those?
All of those are the excuses they give for the loot. That is one. Now, we can go into it and find out whether that happened or not. However, all of that said, assuming that it is entirely true that we needed to sell that land to get Parks and Gardens, equipment and whatever it is, the law says, do not give an instruction that it should be sold to Samson. You don't have that right. It's state property. You hold it in trust. If the determination is made that we need A, B, C, and D, and we needed to sell that land, there's a law that says you put it on an auction, you do A, B, C, and D, and take the highest value for it. So that whole point of...
You know how the auction can be managed?
Well, you see, that is how you build institutions. Right now, we are stage one. They are doing things which are clearly unlawful. We'll go to the auction, which is lawful. Somebody wants to game the auction. We will have a way of dealing with that one also. But let's do the right things, all right? And let me tell you, if these things are published sufficiently and everybody knows it and the auction is there, you come and you are trying to game the auction. Other people are interested. And they will work for you to make sure you can get...
Even Okudzeto Blackbur's proposal, he began with a private members bill, which we understand in this regime will become a state-sponsored bill to make a law that says politically exposed persons will not purchase state property.
I totally agree. In fact, I have an addition to that. That anybody who is politically exposed may not, when they are in office or 4 years thereafter, purchase any state properties and cannot participate in an auction because of the gaming. You know, the time here is not enough to go through all of this. But when you say they will game the auction, okay, who is going to do it? It's the politicians and their friends. So that private members bill, I've discussed it, and I haven't spoken to Okudzeto, but I would want him to add that no PEP shall participate in an auction, one. Number two, 4 years after you leave office, you may not. Okay, that's part of the stewardship we are talking about.
Okay.
Right? And of course, people say, oh, they will let their cronies go and do it. We'll deal with some of these things as we get there. But you see, we are creating a situation where people get into politics just to amass wealth and create capital. And it is bad for our country because in other places it's led to civil wars. We should stop it somewhere. If you want to amass your property and get whatever, go to the private sector, go and work. Interesting.
Okay, so let's hear Dr. Thomas Anaba on this one. He's MP for Garu and former medical director, Rich Hospital. And when I mention former medical director, Rich Hospital, it brings those memories, how things are panning out now, which happened yesterday. Same template, right? You were just hounded out like that.
Yeah.
Around the time we were defending some of the people who had suffered some of these things.
Yeah.
Yes. Will this really work? That the president gives an order that reverse all the sales, cancel all of them? How do you think it will work?
Thank you very much. I think my colleague here couldn't have handled the issue better. I think at least he has brought up some good proposals. But let me first of all thank the good people of Garu. I'm sitting here addressing me as an MP, and also wish our mothers, today is International Women's Day.
That's correct.
And then all Ghanaians, happy Independence Day. A very moderate celebration that we had 2 days ago. I think this is a very good move by the president because all previous governments have come to pay lip service to some of these things. And then people see that it is very free and they can easily go in to do whatever they can to possess state property without any fear of any sort. To buy lands at prices that we all know, that is not the price. That is my problem. I don't mind if government decides that I am going to dispose of this property. It goes through a very transparent process whereby we make maximum gains from it. I wouldn't be worried. but a process whereby the people going to procure are handpicked, are just selected, and they come with any price at all they want for them. It means that some of us who are lay people can just sit in a home and think that they have seen themselves behind the scenes before coming to agree onto this and to sell this. Just like in Cantonment, I have asked for a plot there just some few days ago in millions. In millions.
Yeah.
But I see Dr. Kaba, the best neurosurgeon of Ghana, was living in one of the plots. He was asked to leave within 2 weeks. And his plots were sold to people at very cheap prices, not even up to $1 million, which shows that even if the person was not politically exposed and has acquired the land, is it difficult to go to Buku from Accra, see somebody there, connive with him, let him come and buy a plot at 200 Ghana cedis, and tomorrow he gives it back to me, or go and resell it to another person and make a lot of money and then go back and share it with a politically exposed person. One other thing I would like to say about his proposal he's making is that even the politically exposed person should continue to be politically exposed till he dies. It shouldn't be 4 years. Why? Once you are politically exposed today, tell me, those who worked under Kufuor, are they not politically exposed? How many years now have they left office? They are still politically exposed. Once you know you want to go into politics, know that you have no power in future in this country to go and buy any state property, whether land or vehicle or house or whatever. Then you know that you are taking a risk to go into politics. And politics, to me, is service. Yes. It's service. You are coming to serve and clean your hands and go away and know that you work voluntarily for the country. This move by the president to make sure they reverse all these lands. Good move. It is sending a signal to current appointees that you can't do it because your own appointor is telling other people to reverse an agreement that was made to sell government lands to them. So if I'm doing this today, tomorrow if you attempt, the next government who would come, which is not your party, would revenge. He will ask you to also return it. And returning it certainly will have challenges now, like he said. But I don't think in future there will be a challenge because no one would attempt again to go in to procure government property at a very dumping price, a price that even the lay person on the streets knows that that is not the price. So they'll go to court definitely if they attempt. We have to look at the value for what we want the land for and to see whether if we compensate the person and use the land to do what we want, will it benefit the country? I think they have to reassess. And it's also a deterrent that if you buy state land dubiously, we'll take it back from you.
So you go to court and you spend more to recover the land. You see, the person that you give the land to will get far more than he gave you to take the land. You see, government sometimes does things just to set the precedent that it can be done, also to serve as a warning to the people that even though we spend money to do it, we will still do it. So that no one will attempt, so that the next person who will attempt, like from the Lands Commission, they have given you this work to do. You also hold some of those people to book. Because if they ask you to go and value a land and sell, they ask you to sell a land at some price, and you go and see that the price they are selling is too small, you, the person in that office who is not a politically exposed person, should talk. This is where I see the public servants and the civil servants not playing a role. It looks as if there is some collusion somewhere trying to allow government state property to be dashed out freely. This is the first time we're having this conversation and hearing all these solutions.
Yes.
When it comes to government vehicles, for example, STC does the valuation.
Yes.
We have always seen them.
Yeah.
Very ridiculous, you know? And it hasn't ended. What's the guarantee that there will be a new chapter anyway?
You see, JM said he's coming to reset. NDC says we are coming to reset. And they have just started. And Okujotu Ablakwa had a private members bill, and he's talking of trying to give contributions to enrich it. Let's all try to enrich it. Let's insert it into the article that it deserves and ensure that government properties would not be sold that way again. There is the goodwill from the president and his team to ensure that these things are not repeated. So definitely you have to have hope. And I know some of you are good advocates. Fee sitting here is a good advocate. You definitely hold the president to his feet to ensure that he walks the talk. So let's believe that he's doing it. Once he has agreed to do it, definitely we'll all push When it comes to Parliament, parliamentarians, we all push, Kabiru is sitting here, we all ensure that the bill is passed to make it difficult for politically exposed persons to grab state property, and even grabbing it at a very ridiculous prices that goes against the state. So to me, there is definitely going to be a change. And to promise that you want to reset a country, you want to bring change and make government benefit from its property, I don't think he will renege on it because he may like to create his image, create a new name before he leaves government. And we are ready to support him achieve that.
Okay, thank you very much. And before Kofi, sometimes we have heard on the GAD lands, Accra lands, prime lands, the GAD states, they have not been happy at all because when the state acquires the land, it acquires it for a particular, public good. And then before they say, Jack, it's being given to individuals. Meanwhile, they have what the law calls the right of first option. And they don't even give them that.
That is part of the whole rubric I'm talking about. So if, for instance, you are holding Labone land in trust, and for any reason you choose to say, I don't need it again for that purpose, you should not be able to sell it to anybody. Because the law says so. You have to call back the Alodia owners and hand it back to them. Okay? They don't do that. That's why I'm saying that without discussing it, if this matter goes to court, you will find out that it is the state official that makes a mistake. And the mistake can be corrected because it is so unconscionable and so unjust to the totality of all of us, and specifically to, for instance, the Ghana people, that reversal is proper, even if it costs money.
You say you hand it over to them, but you have to hand it over to them because the state paid some money. So normally they have to pay back the money.
Yes.
Maybe it's often they don't have the money immediately to pay.
The details
so
of that.
Perhaps should we change the law and say once you buy it as government and you don't want it anymore, give it without demanding any money from them?
If you hand it over to them, it's very complex. For instance, you have used part, you haven't used part, but in the workings of it, you give them the first option. Sometimes you would create a lease where they will be a beneficiary, even sell it to the other person. So again, this is not a place to discuss it, but I am 100% sure that it can be worked out such that state lands and all these things cannot be just handed over to individuals who buy them for peppercorn. All right? They either, if you did an auction, for instance, or whatever it is, the Alodia owners or whatever it is, there are all kinds of arrangements by which they can benefit from what. Look at Airport City. Okay, there was a fight over it, and if the government hadn't done what they did there, that place would maybe be a slum now. But we should have an arrangement where the people who are Alodia owners can benefit from the rents and things that come out of those places. So there are ways to do it, but the way not to do it is to have a chief of staff or some minister or some official say, because we need tools, we are selling it to this particular person. That is definitely wrong.
Okay, Dr. Kabiru.
Yeah, so
is it a good move?
Yeah, before I even come to that directive.
Or for your part, for your side of the political divide, you wish that we draw a red line in the sand from this point, rather than say, take back everything and all of that.
Yeah, so we all are lamenting over this problem because of the regime. Government owes no land. That is a fact. And that land belongs to the good people of Ghana, clans, heads, or families, tools. And if government owes no land, definitely government should not be in the business of selling land. And our laws have allowed the Constitution and also maybe probably Act 125, State Lands Act, has actually allowed the government can acquire under Section 1 any land for the purpose of public good. But there is the reversionary right that has been explained. Explained on this particular platform that when the use for which you acquired is no more, is no more valid, you return it to the owners. And if government begins to exercise this right, I'm not sure there will be any land for government to sell to people, either at peppercorn prices or market value prices. So that regime has to be looked at, because without that, it will be difficult for us to solve this matter in its entirety. But there's also the bit about the Land Commission, their pricing formula. Ghanaians and their good people doesn't even have insight into their pricing formula. It's totally different from the market. They pay what they call the premium, and you pay ground rent on the land every single year. Okay, but when we are discussing land, we don't look at their pricing regime. We just look at how much is the land sold. It's 1 million
What you pay upfront.
Not upfront. But the land commission, they pay ground rent every single year on the land.
And you have an idea what these ground rents are?
Well, so it depends on the land,
right,
and the amount. Sometimes you pay 2,000 Ghana cedi a year. Sometimes you pay 1,500. Depend on the land. Okay, so the premium is there, and the ground rent is there. Ghanaians will have to factor all that into the determination of whether or not the land value commensurate with the market value. Without that, we'll be, prosecuting people, or we'll be swallowing the integrity of people for that. For instance, the land bought by the NIB boss. We didn't go into these details. We just know the land there is sold for $500,000, but you are buying it for hundreds of dollars, and that is where the problem then comes in. We can lease, but you see, this directive is it's a very good directive. It's very good, and at a point we must come to a determination that those people who acquire lands, either in the NDC or people, have done no wrong. We can go into the question of unconscionable contract. That is a different matter. But once there was no duress, there was no fraud, there was nothing of that sort, and I legally acquire land from the state, I should go and sleep and peacefully enjoy my property without any, hindrance.
Do you think the reaction that you get from the public would be the same if these lands were being sold to the civil servant at the lowest, range?
It will not.
At these prices?
Unfortunately, we will not have the same reaction. We are having this perception that because we are politically exposed, we are taking advantage of the power and advantage of the authority and the trust.
Is it just perception?
And the trust. And we acquire this property. Rightly so, because the politically exposed people have the benefit of even knowing that they are going to sell those land before the ordinary Ghanaian gets to know.
Right.
Okay. So that there's going to be difference in that, and then our attitude is going to be totally different. But this order is very good. But the problem that I have with the order is, what is the scope of that order? What is the scope of order? You can't then all of a sudden decide to think that...
This one is to foreign affairs lands.
Yes, so that foreign affairs land, what is the scope? Every single foreign affairs land that should be reversed, or those that were acquired in the last 4 years. So you see, when you are taking a measure as a government, you want to carry the country along.
So this is what it is, as communicated by the Foreign Affairs Minister. President Mahama has directed the reversal of all allocations and sale of land belonging to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs by the previous government to be done immediate reversal. So immediately.
And that's the problem with the directive.
And he actually identifies that the directive ensures that the ministry's land at Airport Residential, claimed by 7 organizations and individuals, will now be cancelled and preserved for the people of Ghana. So for Airport Residential alone, you have 7 organizations and individuals who took these lands and who are supposed to now surrender them.
So that's the problem with the directive. It gives a sense that you are targeting sales of land at limited to a particular regime. But if you want to carry the good people of Ghana along, you have to take a definite principle that we are going into the review of the sales of land belonging to the foreign ministry, and we are reviewing every single allocation and then revoking same if there need be.
Would there be a termination point, or
that's what? For instance, it has become topical issue. We can use, in the interest of equity, the president can start with his regime to create the sense that, look, I'm even reversing into the tenure I was the president. He may not want to go to Rawlings' regime, he may not want to go to Kufuor's regime, but because he has this unique opportunity of having served as a president and now coming back, he can say, I will to even include under my tenure. It gives you the moral right, it gives you the buy-in of every Ghanaian. But if you limit it to the NDPP regime, people will not. They feel like, look, because we were selling those land and probably we have sold it to our, quote unquote, our favorite, that is why you are coming after them. But if we extend it 4 years, so in the last, let's say, 12 years, that will have the buy-in. And I'll urge
he who wants to do equity must come with clean hands.
Exactly. So that is what the president has to do. If he feels short of doing this, that measure will not be if you like, will not be applauded by the good exception of the Ghanaian public.
And I urge the law to stop the future.
To stop. And if, in fact, into the future, I believe that we should all, every political exposed person should not have business dealing with.
But practically, what do you think? If he has to extend it to when he was president, that would be back how many years ago?
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah. And those properties would have been developed fully.
The problem. Yeah.
That even goes to the allocation. Some properties have been developed in the last 8 years. So that is still the conundrum we find ourselves. But that means, meaning...
So will you suggest that the directive should be targeted to those who purchased or those who acquired those lands but have not yet developed them?
So that will be fair to the developers and the individuals. That would be a very fair point to make. But of course, you have to pay damages. You have to pay some compensation to those people anyway, because it is a contract you entered into. And that contract, someone has fulfilled a part of his obligations, and then you are reneging on that contract. You definitely have, it will come at a cost to the state. But if it's a principal decision we are taking, or position we are taking, I believe the government can come in, stop the sale of state land. And I think that moving forward, we should all, most of us, we are all victims, or I mean, if you like, being part, different government, we've all been part of it. So it is time, I said different government, we've all been part of this business of selling state properties.
Property. Okay.
That's the point I'm making.
Right.
And once
we said all of us.
At each point, they give it a different name. They have a rezoning, something, redevelopment.
And you remember the case of
infilling.
Infilling, like in Lamoni. They use infilling.
The former chairman's case with Ujedo Ablakwa.
All right.
I mean, it settled the matter. But we need to look at it in much more comprehensive terms. And I agree that maybe the president can revise it to mean undeveloped acquisitions.
Right.
And then probably...
And another corporate leader sends me a message. He says, PEPs, that is politically exposed persons, include the children of politicians.
Yes. Yeah. Even relatives.
They should also be prohibited. Yes. So if you are making the law, you shouldn't say they should also be prohibited. They should just say former politicians, not politically exposed persons. Great panel, great discussion. I've come to the conclusion that the bane of our nation can be summed up in 2 words: greed and indiscipline. If we can't cut these by just 20%, the positive impact will marvel all of us. Most of the ills in our society, such as corruption, the destruction of our environment, shoddy public work, roads, littering, wastage of public resources, etc., are fueled by greed and indiscipline. While we work at these, we must reset our educational system to prioritize values. Value-based education will not only address greed and indiscipline, but will produce truly patriotic and honest public citizens. This is Dr. Clement Abbas Apak, Deputy Minister Education, sending in. And the Special Prosecutor, Kisei Jabing, also had this to say, that we need to look at our education system, need to look at our culture of gift giving, and all of that. Otherwise, this fight against corruption will not be won. We take a break, but before we do that, Dr. Arthur Kennedy said that oral was a good start, but these things must be taken note of. 1, open judgment debt books. 2, act on audit reports. And you hear me, I'm a broken record on that also. What's the name? My friend here,
Kofi.
I like to call him Rebel, so sometimes I'm forgetting to say Kofi Bento. They used to do this thing where they would take the Auditor General's report and audit the Auditor General's report for years. And at a point, Occupy Ghana did the same thing, just 5 years of Auditor General's report. The money stolen and the money's misused for 5 years was far in excess, 3 times what we have gone to the IMF to borrow, 3 billion.
And you know why we stopped?
Why did you stop?
Nobody can. No action.
But you had this key guy who was on it. What's his name again?
Is it Dennis?
No, he passed. Oh, I've forgotten his name. This fair gentleman. Is it Casely?
Oh,
Casely.
Coleman. He didn't pass.
No, Casely.
Casely, yeah.
Any money?
Yeah, no, in Occupy Ghana.
Oh, okay. That's why I can.
Okay, if I remember his name.
Okay, Occupy did some work also.
Right.
And I think we should act on it.
Arthur Kennedy says, act on audit report. Lifestyle audit. Lifestyle audit. The special prosecutor also mentions that. President must sack corrupt ministers. In your own regime, sack the corrupt ministers. Then he says, Parliament must not appropriate money to ministries with negative audit findings. Publish asset declarations. Demand accountability from anti-corruption bodies. When an anti-corruption body takes more public money than it recovers, it should not continue to exist. And he says that also institutionalize e-procurement. And then but his final point, he says, demand accountability from anti-corruption bodies. When an anti-corruption body takes more public money than it recovered, it should not continue to exist. And he says, my apologies. I need to catch a flight. Best wishes to Dr. Tony Edu. Thank you, Dr. Arthur Kennedy. We'll take a quick break. We'll return. And Kesley Hayford. I meant to say Kesley Hayford.
Oh,
yeah.
Sydney
Kesley Hayford.
Sydney
Kesley Hayford. He was like the guy on that beat all the time.
I remember.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.